Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have Jasper. He is a spiritual mystic. Welcome, Jasper. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. So, kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about where, your story, and kind of why you call yourself a spiritual mystic.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm from England, as you can probably tell from my accent, and I'm 60 now, but I've always been different. Right the way back, I remember even being at kindergarten, just feeling different from the other kids, and that's just always stuck around. And when I was younger, I kind of followed my joy, which was music. I was a musician, but I was also making a living out of being a music promoter in London. But, I always had this itch that I couldn't scratch. And towards the end of my 20s, I suppose I kind of had like a minor kind of a breakdown. I just felt that things just weren't working for me and something needed to change. And before that time, I think this was just growing up in the 70s in England. We had to be very hard and tough. And I was just suppressing any kind of thought that I was a spiritual person and, just saying that that whole thing was just ridiculous and silly. And yeah, once I kind of accepted that in myself and I began to meditate, actually, that was the thing, was meditation and just the openness that I started to feel and the self-acceptance from meditation. I just got in touch with something that I couldn't deny, just a feeling of goodness and of yeah, that even though I couldn't explain it, that life is good, and I wanted to explore that more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
love that.
thank you. And so yeah, eventually, calling yourself a spiritual mystic, it sounds a bit pretentious. I'm aware of that, but it's probably about 5 years ago when I was in my mid 50s. I just kind of realized, you know what, that's kind of what I am. It's what I am. I for the longest time, going right back to the 90s, I've had these like very original kind of spiritual downloads. It's like I've just known stuff and I've talked about them with other people and they go, "Well, where did you read that?" And I said, "Well, nowhere. I just kind of know it." And they say, "What, your guides told you?" And it's, "No, I don't have any guides, not that I know about. It's my subconscious. I'm just discovering stuff, deeper aspects of my own psyche." And I kind of realized I'm just not like other people. Other people are carpenters or bus drivers, and I'm a mystic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love how you kind of just own who you are, and I think that that's the biggest. I feel like that's the biggest thing right now is whoever you think you are, or consciously, unconsciously, like that relationship between the I should say the conscious and versus unconscious. I feel like that's really really important. So initially, you say that you kind of always knew this. Would you say that you were always seeking enlightenment? And then, back in the 90s, like you said, uh, would you say that you finally listened to your inner voice? And like what shifted in that once you started listening to that inner voice?
Yeah, I think I've always been a seeker, even before I realized that I was. I was in a tremendous amount of just resistance, because I had a very unhappy childhood and very unsupportive parents. I'm not blaming them, they just were doing their best.
Right.
But it must have been very difficult for them because there's nobody like me in my whole family. They're all just like total normies, 100% complete normies,
Yeah.
And I got kicked out of home when I was 17, and I thought, what am I going to do? My dad hadn't given me any preparation, nothing at all. And so I actually went off and joined the army. I joined the British Army, volunteered, and did 3 years, and then realised it wasn't for me and got out. But even then, I remember having conversations with my friends in my 20s when I was in the music business, and I would always ask these uncomfortable questions, and it would just annoy people. And there was just something about me that I couldn't not do it. It was like, well, I just wasn't content with just following the party line or just, quoting something that, one of my friends learned in his philosophy class. I would always, if something didn't feel right, I would just question that. And so, yeah, when I kind of had this minor breakdown, I realized I just had to try something new. And actually, before that, when I was still in the music biz, a friend had a woman that used to work for me on one of the doors in one of my clubs. She was an astrologer, and she gave me a reading, and I just kind of suffered it, because she was, working for me, and she was a nice lady, and she said, "Wow, you have a really spiritual chart, and you're going to be a new age healer." And I thought, I almost, kind of just balked at that. I thought, oh God, I don't want to be one of those. And God knows why, it was just this kind of trying to be macho to protect myself. But
Right.
yeah, eventually when this breakdown happens, as everybody does, if you have any common sense, you try something new. And yeah, that's what happened. I found a spiritual teacher very quickly. And he really helped me. And so yeah, I kind of I started to accept myself and realize that this feeling of always having felt different, it was something in my subconscious. And I'm also a hypnotherapist, and I just really love the subconscious. I just love the fact that it refuses to deviate from its mission. It's only the conscious mind which is worried about what other people are going to think of me, which kind of screws everything up really and doesn't listen into the inner wisdom of the subconscious. So I finally started to listen.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people, everything that you said, I feel like a lot of people listening to this are going to definitely resonate. It's one of the main reasons why I wanted to name my podcast something different because, everybody always has a special niche or like, it's always in brand. And as much as mine is in brand to who I am, I feel the same way as you did. I always felt like I've always been that person, that kid that was curious, that would ask questions, probably uncomfortable questions, or people, couldn't really answer the questions that I had of like, why is this way? And I always had a deeper, there's always a deeper, I always got surface level answers and I never accepted them. I always wanted to be like, there's something deeper to that. There's something deeper to that. Even my husband now, I'll ask a question and he's like, it's not that deep. And I'm like, but it is. I feel like there it is. I don't want a surface level answer. I want the answer that I know that I know to be true. So when you say when you work extensively with the subconscious mind, can you kind of explain for somebody that doesn't know what the subconscious mind is versus conscious? Like, what is the difference? I should say, like, what's like the relationship that you see, and like, how can this be the key to healing and transformation?
Well, the subconscious mind really is are programmed by God, if you like, whether you believe in God or not, or programmed by nature. Like we kind of have in the Hindu religion they call it our dharma. It's just kind of what we are. Like you're a Pisces or a Leo, or with a certain kind of rising. So all of that is coded into the subconscious. And the subconscious really it doesn't have a choice. The choice is a function of the conscious mind. So the subconscious mind, it basically, in addition to having our program, our purpose encoded into it, it also is able to learn experience and to reproduce experience as habit. And so that's really useful when like learning a language as a child. We learn that language because we're constantly reminded of the new words by our parents, and then reading and writing, arithmetic, eventually learning to drive. All of these things are habits. They're habits which are learned and reproduced without even thinking about it by the subconscious. But the subconscious also learns bad habits, learns, I'm not good enough. And, money doesn't grow on trees, and nobody's going to like me if I say this or that, you know. So we learn this really early on, before about the age of 6.5 or 7. And the reason for that is, about that age, our conscious mind, the choosing, rational, discerning mind, then it sort of comes fully online. And the function of the conscious mind is, as I say, it's the part of our mind that has a choice. So, you know, prior to the age of 6.5 or 7, if we're told that Santa Claus is going to come down the chimney, you know, we don't have a discerning, rational mind that says, "Oh, I don't know about that. That's maybe that's not right." You know, we're just coming from it's like the emotional mind. You know, oh, that's exciting. That sounds good, and we just believe it. So, you know, in the same way as we just believe in Santa Claus without even thinking about it, you know, if mum comes home and she's had a bad day, and, you know, and she snaps at us, you know, we don't understand that she's had a bad day. You know, yeah, we feel hurt. And if that happens again and again, you know, we start to get a little kind of tensed up on the inside, and we start to develop our own inner dialogue as well. You know, we start to copy mum's voice in our own head, and, you know, start being hard on ourselves. So really, the dynamic between the two is supposed to be that the conscious mind, which is the masculine part of the mind, is supposed to, you know, be able to, like, really listen into the subconscious, which is the feminine part, you know, and to kind of serve it and honor it, and you know, go, oh right, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and maybe that's not right, and, you know, to kind of shepherd us to better behavior. But unfortunately, what happens is that the conscious mind, it treats the subconscious mind like an extension of itself. And so, you know, forgive me if you use this terminology, but for me, self-sabotage, I really don't like that expression, because, you know, the subconscious mind, it's never sabotaging you, quotes. It never does that. It's always trying to help us, you know, even if we're doing really stupid things like overeating, or, you know, cutting ourselves even, you know, the subconscious is using that behavior to try to, you know, it's like a coping mechanism. um, but the conscious mind, you know, it just seems absurd that we would cut ourselves, or constantly overeat, or be bulimic or something like that. And so the conscious mind interprets that behavior as self-sabotage. And so this is really where the big problem happens. There's a big schism, a big split between the conscious mind and the subconscious, mainly, but it's not the fault of the subconscious, because that doesn't have a choice. It's the fault comes from the conscious mind, in kind of expecting the subconscious to be other than it is. So really, the purpose of the conscious mind is, you know, like Jesus taught us, you know, is to be loving and kind, and, you know, unjudgmental, and to try to understand the, you know, and to support the subconscious, and to shepherd it in the right way, rather than always, like, judging ourselves, and, you know, trying to fix ourselves, and all of this kind of stuff.
Hey there, I just wanted to take a quick moment to share with all of you spiritual rebels and fempreneurs. If you've been craving a space where you can build wealth, heal trauma, and rise alongside like-minded women, I got something for you to hear about. I'm excited to invite you into the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood. This is a low-cost, high-impact group membership designed exclusively for spiritual fempreneurs who know they need accountability and support to create sustainable wealth, but aren't ready to dive into a one-on-one mentorship. In this membership, you'll get monthly calls, rituals, healing sessions, and workshops to break through your self-doubt and build confidence so that you can consistently sell your offers and make money. This is also a collaborative private Facebook community where you make lifelong connections with other women who are just as serious as hitting their goals. And my personal guidance as your intuitive human design business guide and trauma healer, ensuring you stay aligned and on track with your business goals. Plus, you'll get free access to all my paid workshops and masterclasses, along with exclusive VIP pricing for my one-on-one Voxer membership. This membership is all about helping you heal the sabotaging behaviors blocking your abundance and using your human design to create a business that feels amazing to run. Imagine waking up excited to serve your clients and knowing that you have the exact support you need to hit every single one of your business goals every single month. So if you're ready to rise and build wealth with a sisterhood of spiritual misfits, make sure you click the registration link in the description box. Right now, the investment is just $88 a month, but the price will increase to $197 a month. Join today to unlock exclusive rates and get access to next month's kickoff call. Let's get back to today's episode, but remember, your next level is just one decision away. Join the sisterhood and let's rise together.
Yeah, I do love that you said about this self-sabotage, because I feel like that is probably a very controversial topic, I guess. Some people will, heavily disagree. I mean, I definitely see the perspective that you are saying, how the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind, it's not like you're self-sabotaging. But I feel like with the society, it's so normal to hear, self-sabotage, self this, self that, self-love, all that stuff. And I feel like that is very, I should say, enlightening to hear that, somebody else understands it to a deeper level that I do. Cause I always feel like I never really, when people said, oh, you're just self-sabotaging, I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Cause why would my subconscious versus conscious do that? So I love that you spoke about that, because that is very true. It's like, why would our subconscious do that? It's not doing it intentionally. It has one job. They each have one job. They're supposed to work together, but sometimes it does, it doesn't happen that way. Just like normal life. Okay. So let's kind of talk about, I know that I jumped all around, and before we started recording, I said that we would talk about numerology. So we're going to talk about numerology now. I think you're the first person on the podcast that will speak about numerology. So can you kind of tell us about what numerology is, and how did you come about numerology when you first came about it?
Well, I like to think of numerology as the feminine side of numbers. I think I'm the only numerologist that kind of has that take on things. But when I explain it, people generally understand my drift. So by the feminine side of numbers, I just want to, your listeners, I'm sure, are aware of the concepts of yang and yin, of like the yin yang symbol. And so yang is kind of, we could say, the divine masculine, and yin is the divine feminine. And so really everything in existence has a yang side and a yin side, night and day, up and down. So, and it's the same with numbers. And before I discovered numerology, I really had a problem with numbers. I was terrible at mathematics. I can't remember the technical term, but I had like a number dyslexia at school. I was a pretty smart kid, but I did terrible at mathematics, because I would just get one silly mistake in the calculation, and it would screw everything up. So, numbers was never my strong suit. I was always coming from the creative side, from music. But I was just, in the same time that I was going through my shift, local radio was on in London, and there was a lady who was just plugging her book on numerology. And I thought, oh, this sounds interesting, because all of a sudden I was open to new stuff. And the DJ was inviting people to call in, and so this lady could just do some sample readings on these people, and they were all saying, "Oh my goodness, that sounds really accurate." So I was sold. I went out and bought her book, and I didn't think much of her book. I thought it was just, it was okay, but my interest was piqued, and I just went out and I just, really went to town and started to buy some, big, thick numerology textbooks and basically taught myself. And, after a while, I was kind of giving readings for friends and family. And then they were telling other people about me. And, after about a year, because that's the way it was back in these days, people watch a couple of YouTube videos and, and call themselves a numerologist. But, But 30 years ago, we were a bit slower. So after about a year, I thought, right, I'm ready. I can start, charging for readings now. And I became a pro in 30 years ago, 1995. So what I mean by the feminine side of numbers is that in like the masculine side of numbers is or one, two, or three, any of the numbers, they're just units of measurement. They're very kind of dry and boring, I think. But the feminine side of numbers, it's like, well, how do the numbers make you feel? What is the symbolic meaning of the numbers? So all of us, even if we're not a numerologist, we refer to the boss as the number one and the second in command as the number two. And we say two's company, three's the crowd, right? So that basically is telling us the meanings of the first three numbers. One is the boss because it leads the numbers, it starts the numbers. So one is confidence because it stands alone, it's being alone, it's the leader. Two comes next. Two, when two people get together, it's like it's an intimate situation. So twos are really good listeners. They don't want to be leaders, they want to be supporters and helpers. They're the diplomats. And threes are, so one is like the main masculine, two is the main feminine. Masculine and feminine come together, they have a baby, that's the three. So three is like creative, and it's the child. It's fun, it's playful, it's sociable, it's can be a drama queen, fun, playful. So each number really from 1 to 9, I like to think is the logical progression of the one that comes before it. So I won't go all the way through the numbers unless you want me to, but I kind of think that if so, three is like the child, and it's just play and fun, and the paints are out, and where all the toys are everywhere, and then eventually the mess needs to be cleaned up, and that's the four. Four is discipline and structure and organization. So yeah, and it just continues all the way through to 9. 9 is the final number. And so, really, what could that would have to indicate if you're looking at, like archetypal energies, symbolic energies, what would be the very highest energy, the final energy that human beings can aspire to? And it's compassion. Like 9 is compassion. It's unconditional love and selflessness. And it's really interesting if you look at the life paths, which is all the numbers in the date of birth added together and reduced to a single number of Gandhi, 9, Bob Marley, 9, Mother Teresa, 9. So yeah, really interesting.
I was gonna say I'm 9. What life path are you?
9.
How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you say you're a 9 too?
I'm a 9. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, welcome to the club.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm really intrigued with humanism, numerology and all like astrology. I've always really been, I just kind of got into numerology. My husband's really into numerology. He would tell me stuff and I'm like, I love the way that you said about 1, 2, 3. I feel like that somebody that has no idea about numerology or even numbers, I do know that a lot of people will message me and be like, I keep seeing this number. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and they're like, what does it mean? I'm like, what are you thinking about when you see it? That's like literally the only thing that I can say. I mean, I've been seeing the number, I see numbers all the time, but I specifically ask a question and then I usually see a number slightly after it. And it's just like numbers are everywhere. And I feel like until you're kind of awake or aware of it, you don't necessarily see it. I feel like I've seen numbers, my whole life. Now, granted, it's been 7 years since I started to put it together, but before that, I would always just think it was normal. I'm like, oh, you guys don't see repeating numbers? Like when people would say stuff to me, I'd be like, oh, I've always seen that. So it's just became a little bit normal to me. Then kind of getting into, oh, this is actually how I can get confirmation or messages or whatever. So I really do love the way that you put it that way, because I feel like people that don't remember what number one means or number two or three, and they're putting it together. I feel like that could be something, I mean, I always look at five as like change. What would you say five, six, and seven or eight are? Could you go through those?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, as I said, just in my understanding, um, the numbers from 1 to 9, these are the main numbers.
Mhm.
Each of them is a logical progression on the last one. So just going back to number one, it's really great being independent and being in that masculine side and being strong and not needing anybody. But
Right.
eventually, you might need some help. You might need to just get up on a ladder and paint the very top of the wall, but you need somebody to hold the ladder for you, something like that. So that's where the one eventually, we just need some help. So that's where the two comes in. So then, as I said, then we move on to the three, which is the two people. If you're sitting at a table full of a whole bunch of people, the number two person is not the one that's having conversations across the table. The two person is always going to seek intimacy. So they'll be the one that tries to find somebody that they can have a more intimate discussion with, and then they're going to feel good. But the three person, they're like the kid and they're just having conversations with somebody on the opposite side of the table. That's, all of that. So as I say, so four comes next, the logical progression after all the creativity and the fun and the spontaneity of the three is, well, we have to have some order, some discipline and structure. And that can only last so long, and then you need expansion, you need change, because too much four, everything just becomes too rigid. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, five is change. So one is the sun, two is the moon, three is the earth, four is Mars, and five is Mercury, the messenger planet.
Mm.
So yes, five is change, it's communication. Five rules the throat center. And then we can
Oh,
only have so much change and whizzing around and, wow, this is great. I'm traveling to all these different countries and having so much fun. And eventually we just feel the need to kind of settle down and create community and family. And that's six. So six is family. Six is the classic mum or the classic dad or the classic doctor or the social worker or friend. So six is Venus. Okay, so then we again we can only have, that's not the end of the human experience. We could say that maybe after the kids are grown up and left home, it's like the parents have maybe more time to start discovering the deeper mysteries in life, and that's seven. So seven is wisdom, it's understanding, and not all seven people are kind of mystical people. Some of them are lawyers or teachers or accountants, but eventually most sevens, they start to, want to ask some of the deeper questions. So that's the seven. Seven people are often kind of loners, because they're more serious kinds of people. And then the eight's a very interesting number. It's so seven is Pluto, and then eight is Saturn. So Saturn is like it rules the bones in the body. It's the most dense energy in our solar system. Saturn is the Lord of the Rings in the story. So when we start to worship the energy of Saturn to the exclusion of everything else, the bones of everything just becomes too materialistic, and it's time and money, and Saturn becomes Satan or Sauron. So Saturn is known as the money number in this very materialistic world that we live in, but it's much more than that. Saturn is really supposed to be. It takes the wisdom of the seven, but the seven can sometimes be maybe a little bit theoretical or spiritual. But the eight kind of has that wisdom and is able to apply it in a sort of material way. So in the best case scenario, in a more enlightened world, the eights would be running the big works, the waterworks and the politics and all of that. And, they'd be very wealth orientated kinds of people and want to have good lives for themselves. But they would also make sure that the workers and everybody else were benefiting too. So I think that, with a superficial understanding of numerology, people just think of 8 as the money number, and like I say, it's much more than that. These are the managers of humanity, you know, ensuring that we're all doing well and nobody's poor.
Yeah.
And then the final number, it even moves on from this, managing the works and everything, and it's like, wow, it's just kind of total unconditional love, best case scenario which is the 9. It's like, wow, I just kind of have this vision of even moving beyond an economy. Wouldn't it be just nice if we didn't even have to, charge for stuff, and we could all just be doing what we love? That's the vision, the goal of the 9. And for most people, it's unrealistic. But 9s, hopefully we can still bring some of this desire for a better world, and to keep holding that, that goal, that goodness that we bring to life.
Yeah. Just to say, yeah, thank you for, it makes sense of why I kept this whole week I was seeing 555. I mean, with Mercury going in retrograde, me working on communication with like different things and just change. Like I've always resisted change before, and now I lean into it and it feels less heavy, and I just know that the one thing that's always consistent in life period is change. So learning all of that, it's so much easier to be like, oh, I need to change my communication, or I need to communicate better, or, I need to focus on speaking or my throat chakra or whatever. So thank you for going through all of that. Cause I feel like people that are listening to this are going to be like, oh my gosh, oh my God. Like having so many, I've had just in the amount of, the 5 minutes that you talked about it, I'm just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, okay. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's very
I just maybe,
simple,
I
and
just wanted, oh, sorry.
that's okay. I was going to say I like very simple and easy thing. Like even if you don't even know what numerology is, I feel like just from listening to you speak, I feel like people are going to be like, oh, I can kind of get into this. I can kind of understand it a little bit better because obviously you're doing very simple things, but I feel like that is a start, especially if you want to learn more, of
Yeah.
course, they'll work with you. But, numerology, if people want to kind of get a little basis of what it is and how it can help them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really fun thing once we start to understand it. One thing I wanted to say, just in case there are any 9s out there who are wondering which planet is associated with 9, it's Jupiter. So
Oh,
there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lucky planet.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
It makes now that you say that, it makes so much sense because I feel like I I can't remember what zodiac sign rules my planet Jupiter, but maybe it's Taurus. I could be wrong. But it makes sense of like when Pluto goes in, or not Pluto, when Jupiter goes in retrograde, it's actually an easier time for me, I feel like energetically versus not. And then when you said about the 9s, when 9s are all about compassion, love, and it always made sense of why it was so hard for me when I started my business to charge people, because I just wanted to do it because it's what I felt like felt good to me. But I can't tell people, bill people, I'm sorry, I'm not associated, I'm not paying for this or whatever. Obviously to live in the 3D world, you have to pay bills. I get that. But, now when you had said that, it makes a lot of sense because it is coming from a place of doing something that feels good versus, like I have to do it kind of thing. So there is actually a lot of 9 life paths. I'm connected with a lot of 9 life paths. So there's a deeper reason there, but every time I ask people their astrology or their, life path number or, their human design, there's a lot of 8s and 9s. So I know that people relate that 888 or like the number 8 to money, but it is definitely a deeper, they are the managers of society. They
Mm,
should
mm,
be anyway.
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
said. Yeah, that's awesome. Before we wrap up, is there one last nugget of wisdom that you can give somebody that might feel maybe uncertain or afraid living their, own life or their own experience. Maybe they're on the edge of a spiritual awakening, or they're just uncertain. Is there something that you can leave them to think about?
Goodness, I would say develop a more intimate connection with nature. I would say the trees in particular are just there, and they're really there for our benefit. They're not just breathing out oxygen and we're breathing out carbon dioxide for them. If you go and sit under a tree, or you put your back against a tree, or you hold a tree, if you're willing just to be patient and to switch your phone off for a while, eventually you're going to start to notice a response from the tree. You really, you maybe won't feel it the first time, but if you're patient, after some time, you're going to feel a kind of you're going to just feel better inside yourself. And there's something about trees and nature in general that, forgive my language, but they love our shit. They love our stuff. It's like I've had cats before in the past. Don't have one now, but I've seen, like, when a mother cat is cleaning up after the kittens, she will even kind of eat the poop of the kittens, and I kind of remembered that when I really started to connect with nature. And I thought, wow, it's like nature and trees in particular, it's like they love our shit. It's not that we should go out and start screaming in nature and screaming out our pain. Don't do that. That's not nice. But, like, just whatever we're feeling on the inside, the hurt, the anger, whatever, if we can just kind of just have a feeling that we're just giving it, without screaming and shouting or and cursing or anything like that, but we're just giving it to the tree, or giving it to the sky, but particularly to the tree. And there's just this feeling of, like, the tree wants it, because there's something in the purpose of nature where they kind of recycle our shit. I just think, we're not even recycling our actual shit properly. We're sending it off to horrible sewage farms, and it's being treated with chemicals and everything. And I think that one of the problems with humanity is that we're just not dealing with our shit properly. Whether it's the actual physical stuff or the emotional stuff. You know, and so nature is there really to help us to handle our emotional poop. And so that would be one of the first things I'd say, is just discover for yourself, because you have to discover it for yourself, not just some guy telling you. But you will find out if you're willing to do this. Maybe just go down and lay down in the garden on the ground and let your body touch the ground, and just kind of have this willingness to just surrender and give your anger or your hurt or your sadness to nature. You'll feel it. Just, wow, this is the best therapy I could ever have, and it's free.
Yes. Yeah, I got body chills when you said that, because that's another reminder for, because they say, like, go hug a tree, walk in nature, ground, because I feel like even during the shamanic path, because I'm a shamanic practitioner, so it's like I sometimes consciously forget, oh, I can just give this back to Mother Earth, walking of, like, or talking or just sitting in the, you know, grass or wherever. And I just feel like listening to the wind, or the wind helps too. All of the elements I feel like help, the rain, I feel like all of the elements, I feel like that's a huge reminder that, we are very connected with nature. And I feel like often people forget about that. Cause, like, if they don't believe you, like, oh, I'm not connected. I'm like, go sit outside for a little bit and see how you feel after. And nobody ever tells me they feel more angry, like, or more sad. It's like there's always this sense of, like, I feel calm, or, well, what do you think happened? It's not magic. It's just, what happens. It's just, nature's here to help us. Cause, like you said, that we're all connected. And basically go hug more trees. That's basically what he's saying.
Mhm.
You'll feel better if you hug more trees. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and I'll make sure Jasper's all of his, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the audio, I'll make sure all of his links to connect with him are below. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.